Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the Broxtowe series, 10 parishes with an industrial past running along the western fringe of Nottinghamshire. Where are we today, viewers? Now, I've changed my planned route for this one this morning already because it was too early really for me to start. It was still a bit dark. It is now starting to get light, as you can see. There's a bit of light in the sky now, and I'm making my way to my revised starting point. And in doing so, I've had to traverse this footpath, and I've been chased across a field by a horse. Believe it or not. Welcome to Cossall. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Welcome back to Nottinghamshire, everyone. Our first look at the Borough of Broxtowe comes in the form of Cossall, a village located right on the border with Erewash, about 1 mile east of Ilkeston. This is mentioned in the Domesday Book as Cotshale. A pretty hilltop village, its surrounding valley is drained by the River Erewash, and historically much of it would have been fenland. There are several notable historical figures associated with Cossall, including John Shaw, Richard Waplington and Thomas Wheatley, 3 men who fought at the Battle of Waterloo. Cossall was also the village that author D.H. Lawrence used as the background for his 1915 novel The Rainbow. In real life, this was the actual home of Louie Burrows, to whom Lawrence was engaged for a time. Broxtowe was once a centre of heavy industry, and although Cossall is seemingly quiet now, it was definitely a major part of that history. Coal mining was an important part of the local economy, and the village once played host to Cossall Colliery, sunk in the late 1870s. Serving the colliery was a railway line, but before that came along the Nottingham Canal passed through the village. Its main purpose was to transport coal from the Erewash Valley into Nottingham, and although it's been disused since 1936, its remains are still clearly visible. Let's see if we can find them as we take on the first of the 10 parishes in Broxtowe. We begin at the northern end of Cossall village on Church Lane. This is the main street through the village running from north to south. For virtually the whole length of this long bendy road, Church Lane is residential. There's no shop, pub or post office. The closer to the church you get, the older and grander the buildings become, some of which are hidden behind big gates. The place is kept looking nice thanks to a few floral displays. On this bend are some provided by a garden centre at nearby Trowell. Here's one of the many parish notice boards in Cossall, and that means leaving a card. 1 down and 9 to go in the Borough of Broxtowe. The lane then bends again as we continue south and passes the phone box. No phone here, but there is a defibrillator. We're about to round another tight bend as we reach the top of the shallow hill which the main village stands on. The valley below would have once been very marshy fenland, which gives an explanation to its modern name, Cossall Marsh. So a very residential village so far, and one that's very linear, winding its way as it does along this one main road, south towards the Nottingham Canal, which is disused, and north towards the parish of Awsworth. And speaking of Awsworth, part of Awsworth village actually falls within Cossall's boundaries because it cuts the bottom part of the village off, but you'll see that in the Awsworth episode, which is coming very soon. Let's carry on around the corner because now we're heading for the church. Now we're on a straight piece of road which runs directly towards St Catherine's Church. As you can see, the houses are starting to get older. We're about to pass a building which might claim to be the oldest residential property in Cossall, a row of almshouses. These are they. Built in 1685, they were founded by George Willoughby of Castlewood Hall, the nephew of Lord Wollerton. They were designed for 8 poor people, 4 single men over the age of 60 and 4 single women over the age of 55. They currently sit empty and look a little forlorn. They remain Grade 2 listed and were sold into private ownership in 2016. Next is Cossall Community Hall. Until 1891 this was a school. Cossall's original school was in an upstairs room of the almshouses. Then we come to an information board which tells us about the author D.H. Lawrence, and he knew this place quite well. Cossall was the village Lawrence used as the background for his 1915 novel The Rainbow, in which he calls it Cotshale. His character, Ursula Brangwen, is based on Louie Burrows, who lived here in Church House. Lawrence was once engaged to her. So there will be a little bit more on D.H. Lawrence coming when we do the Eastwood episode coming very soon. But for now, we're talking about Cossall, so he can wait his turn, even though he did know this village quite well, according to the information board. Right, so here we've got a map of the village, and you can see we are definitely in the Borough of Broxtowe. Cossall is a conservation area. That's no surprise, is it, when you look at some of the buildings that are around here. And here's a map of the place, and we are currently right there where it says number 2. Number 2 is actually this building here, which I showed you a moment ago, and the church is number 3, and that's where we're going next. As you can see, that's literally just there. The Grade 2 listed St Catherine's Church stands on another tight bend. This one has an unusual memorial in its grounds. This is the Waterloo Memorial to the 3 local men who fought in the battle. It was erected in 1877 on its 62nd anniversary. The church wall has another plaque of interest. This one celebrates 100 years of Cossall Parish Council. So let's take a closer look at St Catherine's Church. It's quite a small building, but still has some interesting features. Its font is 15th century, and its 13th century tower contains 2 bells. In 1842, the whole edifice except the spire was rebuilt. Much of the carving in the church was carried out by Alfred Burrows, the father of D.H. Lawrence's love interest, Louis. Its windows are notable too. A south-facing window depicts St Catherine, whilst the east window commemorates the Burrows family. As well as the Waterloo Memorial, the churchyard also has the War Memorial, displaying the names of 27 men in total. Now, as we learned earlier, Cossall is on a hilltop, and this is effectively the top of the hill where the church is. It always makes sense to build a church on a tall mound, doesn't it? No exception here. And all I've got to do really from this point onwards is walk down the hill. We've already walked up one side of it, and now we're going to drop down the other side. Now, between here and where the car is parked, I don't think there's a great deal to show you apart from more houses, but you never know, there could well be something that surprises me. Church Lane now starts to make its way downhill again as the road bends for one final time towards Mill Lane. I was right, there isn't much more down here, although Manor Farm is located off Mill Lane. That has a bit of history. It stands on the site of Cossall Wood Hall where George Willoughby was seated. Some moat traces remain today. The end of the walk sees us overlooking a valley via this gate opposite Manor Farm. Now let's talk about the Nottingham Canal. So yeah, not really much more between the church and where we're standing right here. However, as you leave Cossall to the south, you come across, or you would come across if you looked hard enough, part of the disused Nottingham Canal, which bends. It has a big bend in it that almost touches this road. And I think you can actually get to that bend. I think there's a little footpath which connects the road to the side of the canal. However, I know a better place where we can talk about the Nottingham Canal, and that would be Cossall Industrial Estate to the north of the village, and that's where we're heading right now. Coal mining has been an important part of the local economy since the 13th century. To the north of Cossall is the area known as Cossall Marsh, and it's the location of this industrial estate. This is built on a former coal mine, Cossall Colliery. Cossall Colliery was sunk in 1878 and 79 by the Cossall Colliery Company, and yes, that was a tongue twister to say. When Alfred Hewlett, or Colonel Hewlett as he was known locally, became its managing director, he would provide free coal to St Catherine's Church for heating. Cossall Colliery closed in November 1966, but the pit's spoil heap would regularly catch fire for a number of years afterwards. Not much remains from the days of coal, but if you know where to go, you can find something interesting. At the end of the estate there's a footpath which runs over a bridge. This is a former railway line which served the colliery. There are actually two bridges here side by side, but the other one was never designed to carry a railway line. Both bridges were built in 1958, replacing an aqueduct which carried the Nottingham Canal over Coronation Road. Opened in 1796, the Nottingham Canal ran for almost 15 miles and was connected to both the Cromford and Erewash canals. Its main purpose was the movement of coal from the Erewash Valley to Nottingham. It was abandoned in 1936. The bridge you see here though is still an aqueduct, sort of. It's carrying two pipes within a concrete superstructure. And after passing under the two bridges on Coronation Road, we're off to the next one, Awsworth. Keep in mind that part of Awsworth village falls within Cossall's boundaries, so we'll be seeing the last part of this one in that episode. For now though, I hope you've enjoyed this first foray into Broxtowe. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.